Krissy Knox with Bowtech Archery. We're here to talk a little bit about blind setups and how to set up your decoys for archery hunting spring turkey. A few important things to think about when you're setting up your blind. If you can go out ahead of time and you've scouted the area, you know where the turkeys are, you want to come out and set up your blind ahead of time to give those birds a chance to acclimate to it. I like to set up in an open area where you have a meadow and low vegetation where your decoys are going to be very visible. So keeping that in mind, find a place at the edge of that meadow where you can put the blind, where you can kind of brush it in a little bit, where you're kind of looking down at the birds. I like to stay above them or at least on the same level as them. The other thing to think about is what time of day you're going to be hunting so that you can play the sun position. I like to hunt mornings. It seems to be the best time to catch those toms in the late morning, leaving their hens in early morning, of course. So I like to position it so that the sun is coming in from behind you or to the side. Like any game animal, you don't like to broadcast yourself in a spotlight. It makes you more visible, it makes it harder to see the animals. So if that sun's at your back, you're going to make sure that you're hidden in the shadows. Turkey have really good vision. That's something you have to think about first and foremost. Luckily, they have no sense of smell, so you don't have to play the wind, but their vision is amazing. So you want to make sure that you're blacked out in the blind or wearing proper camo or even just black. You don't want that sun shining on your face. The other thing to think about is your decoy positioning. You want your decoys to be visible so that when you're setting up the windows that you're going to shoot out of, you want to make sure that where your decoys are going to be is all going to line up. So those are all things to think about. Decoys and blinds go hand in hand. So now that you have your blind set up where you want it to be, now we need to talk decoys. I like to set up my decoys about 15 yards away from the blind. You can get away with setting them up about 5 yards away. A lot of people do that. The good thing about turkey's vision is they have no depth perception. So as long as you're not moving, they can walk right up to you. Being a bow hunter and trying to draw a bow, I don't like to be quite that close. One, they might see you, and two, they have really good hearing, better than people think. So I like that 10 to 15 yard range. It still gives you a top pin shot, but it gives you a little bit more of a sound cushion, and it keeps you back in the blind a little further so that hopefully they won't see you. So what we have set up today is I use a 3 decoy system. For early season, I like using a Jake with a breeder hen. And then I also have a lookout hen over there. The reason I do this is, let's say you have a tom coming in. If he sees a Jake with 2 hens, if you just had one, the tom, might think, well, okay, that's fine. But if he has 2 hens, he's gonna wanna know why and how that Jake got 2 hens to come in, and he's more likely to check it out. So the more hens you can have with that Jake or whatever you're using, the better, I think. You'll do absolutely just fine if all you have is a hen and a Jake. That's what I started out with, but adding that 3rd bird definitely gets those toms more interested and gets them to you quicker. Okay, so you have the decoys you want to use. Now it's time to position them. You need to keep in mind that you don't want them too close together, but you also don't want them too far apart. I usually do between 5 and 7 feet apart. You can do whatever system you want, but you need to think about where you're going to be shooting and if you're willing to sacrifice a decoy to get the shot. So I like to spread them out so that they're in a line to me without one in front or behind the other. One thing to think about in early spring weather, we get a lot of windy days, and you might be watching your decoys out there doing this. A little natural movement is good, but you don't want them moving around so much that it looks unnatural, or you might want them in a certain position like we talked about for shot placement. So if you have a decoy that's not behaving, you can just put a stick in the ground up against the side so that it can still move and get that natural movement, but it's not going to spin all the way around. So don't be afraid to use those little tricks.